Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Newey, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Bruce Vaio, the owner and managing partner of SaniSafe, the designer and fabricator of plastic and acrylic products. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Hey, good afternoon, Malcolm. Thank you for having me.
Bruce, you grew your company's revenue from $1 million in 2014 to $2.5 million in 2017, a 140% increase, and in 2018, you hit about $3.7 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does, beyond my quick intro, and how your company differs from the competition?
Sure. There's really two components of what we do. We are a manufacturer of plastic and acrylic products, and we're primarily designed to create value merchandising products for the grocery and retail industry. So in Texas, our largest grocer is H-E-B, and they're one of our largest customers. We've also gotten into doing retail items for people like when we're sitting with Whole Foods, one of our largest clients. But an exciting entree into kind of a new area, as we started to work with these various people, we started to notice that shrink amongst their inventory was a pretty considerable thing, and more specifically theft. So we quickly started to merge to find solutions in theft prevention or asset protection that has really helped us grow, and really is kind of the legs that have kickstarted the rapid growth in revenue that you identified.
And how would you differ from other plastic and acrylic manufacturers out there?
I think that the thing that truly differentiates us, what we have found is in the grocery and retail industry, there's not a lot of forward thinking. They think in about 90-day increments. In other words, when they want to roll out a different product or they want to feature a different food item or that, it's for, let's say, upcoming right now, it would be for Memorial Day. So the marketing team of those prospective customers, what they end up doing is they start thinking about how are we going to differentiate ourselves by creating something new to be able to display these products. That's where we come in, and we're a little bit different. Rather than have on-the-shelf items, what we do is we work with the marketing teams, try to understand how they're trying to promote that product, and then what we do is build specialized, customized items that help them merchandise that product. So literally, we're put on the clock. I mean, they go from inception of idea to where fulfillment, it could be anywhere inside of 90 days, but usually it's idea at around 45 to 60, and you're in the supermarket once we go into production, probably within 3 weeks.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, there's not a lot of companies that do that. It's a little bit different challenge. We don't carry large inventories because quite a few of our items are truly customized.
Now, can you give me an idea of what your items are? You say that you do work with H-E-B, the grocery store here, Whole Foods. If I go into Whole Foods right now, where are your items?
So if we were to sit and take Whole Foods and we were to walk around, what you would say is a lot of the display items. Okay, let's go to the seafood or the meat market. You'll see a very customized divider. It's an acrylic divider, specifically labeled, that would separate the different cuts of meat. It's a very clean look. It's a way that instantly when you walk up as a customer, you can identify that is grain-fed beef. It might be, on chicken or on the seafood side. It's just a different way than the old stainless steel dividers, and it's very unique to Whole Foods. And it's interesting. We started selling with the group here out of Austin. We're now virtually coast to coast providing those products.
So how many of those dividers does Whole Foods have they bought from you? Are talking like tens of thousands?
We're probably approaching somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000.
Right. And how about for H-E-B? Similarly?
Similar. They are obviously more diversified in kind of their product offering as far as how big they are. There, you've got everything from dividers. We do a lot in their bakery goods. If you see how they display cakes or how they display cookies or their macaroons, we develop very custom trays around that. But it's kind of interesting. In H-E-B, we've started to do what are called end cap merchandisers, where if you can think of walking up and down a grocery aisle, as soon as you round the turn, that can be lost space unless you put a product there. And so what H-E-B does an excellent job is that they actually go and they try to use that as merchandising opportunities. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize how much that the DVD industry still is a part of kind of people's entertainment. I just automatically thought everyone went to Netflix now or that. But DVD sales at the grocery store are a pretty big item. And so what we've actually done is we've created a movie time display that offers everything from a high-tech Raspberry system where they can go ahead and they can actually project the same movie throughout all the different HEBs and then have all the available movie offerings so that when people round the turn, oh, hey, yeah, I want to buy that movie and pick that up. So we've started to build those out. And again, these are much greater, much more advanced than your typical divider or your risers or your cake displays.
So for these end units with the DVDs, I'm having a little bit of trouble picturing what it looks like. So what are you building in this particular case?
So if you could, probably the best way for, the average person that thinks about what does an end cap merchandiser look like, it's almost like a kiosk display. So if you can imagine, to give you a little bit, height-wise, probably around 8 feet. It's about roughly 48 inches to 60 inches wide. We actually have a flat screen TV that is continuously playing one of the DVDs that they're featuring. You then right below it, it's LED lit. It looks like something that you could possibly see at like a Fiesta Texas or a Disneyland type. It's very attractive and very appealing. But it's like a kiosk that is there promoting the various movie titles that are available to the shopper.
So how much of that did you build? You build all of it, including the lighting and the LED panel?
We do. And how that evolves, it actually is a concept that a person or a team like HEB's marketing group would come up with. They would sit there and lay out, this is what we are trying to achieve. This is kind of the concepts we're looking at. And we move everything from a physical prototype. The various teams collaborate, and then we chisel it down to where you ultimately come up with what will be considered the specification model that will go into all the different stores. Right now, in all the HEB pluses, we've got the movie time display, and we're getting ready to take on the next generation. You go out there with the first round, you learn what works, what doesn't, and then you go ahead and you advance that feature to where you refine it and make it, more economical, more sturdy, and improve the longevity.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you go into this line of business where you're just making pretty standard shelf dividers to more customized dividers, and now to these end units that are integrating parts beyond just plastic and acrylic?
We actually, it's kind of been an interesting transformation. We started to get some inquiries. Again, it was primarily around theft that started us down this path. We had a local retailer in San Antonio that was having problems with their GoPro cameras being stolen. They displayed their GoPros in kind of an end cap type of a merchandising venue. And they were wanting to combine the asset protection that we could do along with the merchandising. And so we came up with a GoPro end cap. So we started down there. That led us to an interesting project with HEB where they call it their Google end cap, all the Google products that they market out of their grocery stores. So we evolved into that. And then simultaneously, as we were working along these lines, we had joined forces with a very, very sharp inventor by the name of Gary Herring. He's got a company called the Albert Einstein Group, and we had worked with him on developing a patented technology, which we call Smart Track, for asset protection. When we started to work along those lines, kind of when you merge where we had gone with some of the work he has done, we kind of melded that together and said, you know what, there's a market for this. And that's a path that we're currently exploring very heavily. So
how does your product work in that it protects the asset from theft, but then at the same time it makes it easy for someone to buy it?
That's a very interesting conversation of how that. So that actually started with work that we did with Walmart. Walmart is continuously fighting a high level of shrink, primarily theft. And it's a combination of internal and external theft that they're having to deal with. So we were able to provide a solution primarily around their electronics, their phones, but there's a lot of the baby formula, stuff inside fishing reels and rods and that. So we came up with the idea of saying, okay, if you're losing this amount, how can we develop a cabinet that's translucent so you could actually see the merchandise that's in there, but also be sturdy enough to protect it from a pretty sharp thief being able to just get in it in a matter of seconds. So through about 6 iterations, we were able to come up with that at Walmart. Well, even though we were winning on that side and we were significantly reducing theft, I mean, to give you an idea, there were stores that had shrink or theft in the range of anywhere between $1.5 to $3 million annually. And we were able to shift that down to just slightly over 100 to 150,000, and not primarily related to what we were protecting. Well, the big issue then became, okay, the asset protection managers they're happy. It's doing the job. Market managers, the store managers, they're not happy at all, because every time you lock that up, that means that if you got a potential shopper, you just made it more complex for him to actually shop. So that's where we came up with the proprietary technology that we call Smart Track. And again, our patent's pending on this. But basically, what we did is we tried to merge and say, can we get to a keyless locking system that would not only be able to make it easier for if you identify a customer that's in front of a case that wants to open it up, but can we go ahead, open it, and then generate a tremendous amount of either market or asset protection data through the cabinet. And it's actually, with the technology today, it's pretty amazing. What we've been able to do is we've been able to make it easier to access the cabinet. We've been able then to generate such things as how long is that cabinet open and closed? Who opened the cabinet? Was it an internal guy? Was it someone internal with a customer in front? We then have dwell sensors embedded. These are all available options. A dwell sensor that would sit there and determine how long was that person in front of the cabinet. So in other words, how long were they interested in what they were looking at? Where inside the cabinet are they looking? At the same time, we have actually sensors that you can set a level of, let's say, sensitivity to where if you bumped it hard or you tried to shake the doors to open it up, it would trigger an alarm and notify the asset protection team that someone's attempting to do something other than the norm. So what was the value? Well, the value in this is a couple of things. You can learn a tremendous amount of, in particular, what items where on the shelf are drawing the most attention to people. The second thing is that you're able to identify the length of interest someone had in the cabinet being open. But you also are able to aggregate all this data so that you not only just know about that cabinet, you can know that cabinet plus the cabinets in a store, in an area, in a region, and where ultimately now you've got decision-making tools that were never available before. Mm-hmm. So we're just on the cusp of that. We're working with 3 people on this technology right now to specifically deploy it to their various displays. But I will tell you, it's exciting, and the feedback we've gotten, and there's nothing else like this.
So I'm having trouble visualizing how I can imagine how I can look through a cabinet and see stuff. I see it, that's been done. But how do you make it easy for me to buy it?
So first off, and this, you don't think about this, but one of the biggest deterrents of being able to buy is not having in stock what you want. And so literally in the case of Walmart, they were suffering from people, they had disinterested buyers. They went there with a purpose. When they walked up to a various display, it was broken into, there was nothing in there. So what we were able to prove is actually show that by encasing things and having product availability, now their revenue actually went up. Okay, so that was myth number 1 that we were able to dispel. So the second thing is okay, now if the inventory's there and available, how do we make it easier for them to get into the cabinet? Because here's your typical old way versus new way. Old way, Malcolm walks up to the display. He looks in there, he's looking for an iPad, let's say. You look in there, and now you've got to wait for employee number 95 to come and open up your cabinet.
Right.
You don't have time for that. You become disinterested and you walk away.
Yeah, I fire up Amazon and buy it on the spot.
So Exactly. What we're able to do now is we're able to actually have you come, it will identify that you are actually in front of a cabinet. There's several ways that the cabinet can be opened. You can either do it through a notification, you notify, camera sees that you're there, button's open, and you're ready to go. So it's almost instantaneous. The other can be that you've got a main control panel in a particular section of the floor. Once you end up, it notifies that there's a customer in front that wants to get in. You're able to sit there and open it up automatically. But what it does is it lets the individuals in asset protection that might be that department head know that there's someone there shopping at that. And that's probably, the numbers are so compelling with the theft that's going on that this just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So what's to keep some enterprising person to just hang out next to some guy, a legitimate buyer who opens up the cabinet and then they just help themselves while the doors are open?
I don't think you're ever going to get away from that. But what it does versus, kind of what is happening now, one, you still have a bunch of merchandise that's not being protected at all.
Yeah.
So you've just got that walking out.
Yep.
And literally, it's not unusual at some of these stores to see shrink in the level of 1.5 to 3 million, like I identified before.
So they can save $1 million installing these cabinets. What do you call them? What's the name of your product?
So what we call we have a whole line under what we call SecureSafe.
Okay.
So
a Walmart store, just keep the math easy for me. They're losing $1 million a year due to shrinkage. They're looking at installing your products to help reduce the shrinkage. What's their likely anticipated ROI from that?
Oh, these things, the payback is unbelievable. I really don't want to go into the pricing level of what we do with these various cabinets, but I think it's safe to say just to give you kind of a good feel. So in a cabinet that's about 4 foot wide, let's say 30 inches in depth, about 4 foot tall, you're probably looking at somewhere, without SmartTrack, the cabinet itself is going to run probably close to $650. Mm-hmm. And then you sit there and you take a look at putting SmartTrack in with the cabinetry, probably throw another $350 to $400 on top of that to run it. The returns are, like I said, they're in triple digits.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just roughly talking about $1,000 for a cabinet, and over the course of the year, you have some high value goods in there, cameras, iPads, so on. If you just reduce 1 month's of loss, that more than covers the cabinet.
And to give you kind of a feel on as far as how durable and how good the cabinets are, we started out with generation 1. And really what it started with is we had retailers that said, hey, can you just come in? Right now, it's free game. You can just walk up, grab something, and you're out the door. We just want you to protect to slow them down. So that was our generation 1 cabinet. And quite frankly, versus where we are today, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
So our original cabinets deterred a knowledgeable thief for about 2 minutes. Our generation 6 cabinet has withstood virtually taking a sledgehammer and trying to beat it. And this is polycarbonate, so it's clear. It looks like you should just be able to go up and shatter it, but it's an amazingly durable product in the way with kind of the fastening system that we've gone to in that. I don't want to say it's completely indestructible, but if someone is in a retail store and they're having to beat it with a sledgehammer, you got a problem, and then you're just completely asleep, if you're not listening to that.
Right.
But that's what it takes. And I'm going to tell you, there's such a problem with drugs in our country right now that the targeting of retail stores to steal, to generate money for the sale, it's a epidemic problem, and that's what these retailers are having to face.
Interesting. So areas that have a drug problem would be more interested in buying your product.
Where it's more prevalent,
yes,
we've seen it. If you kind of take a look at some of the demographic areas and around the Southwest, that's where we've seen the higher numbers.
Interesting. Now, the products these secure, safe products, secure cabinet products that your customers are buying, is there a repeat element to it in any way, a recurring element? Or is it a purchase once and they're kind of good for it for years?
Well, the one thing that we are looking for is a sustainability. We need a depth and a breadth of its scope. There's got to be scope to what we're doing to be able to generate the kind of economics you need in manufacturing. So yes, we will go sell to a kind of a one and done type client, but what we really do is target customers that got multiple stores that are looking to bridge this gap and or to fill this void. But our anticipation is that you go in, you put a cabinet in, and it's going to last for quite a long time. You may have to go in and do repair work just from wear and tear over time, which we do that also. But as we've seen it, the world is so big right now. I'm not worried that we're at a stage where, oh my God, there's no more work to be had. We're now just going to be in the sustainability side of the cabinetry.
So Walmart's one of your customers right now for these secure cabinets?
They have been, yes.
And they rolled it out to all of their stores, or are they going selectively where it's
primarily the stores that we have done work in are primarily South Texas, Houston. I've done some here in Austin, in San Antonio. We have put in close to 2,000 cabinets. Like I said, we're in the transition now of looking at this whole Smart Track concept. We don't have Smart Track in with Walmart. And we're actually working with a couple of other potential customers on that. Some real specific items that are, I'd say they're a little more unconventional than what we've done in the past. For instance, there's several, if you take the C stores, the convenience stores, some of them, especially back east, will have a, more of a storeroom where you actually walk in and they've actually got shelving where they've got the 12 packs of beers that are racked up, and people are walking in and walking out with beer without paying. So they've come to us and actually have asked, is there a way you can solve this problem? And using our Smart Track technology, we've actually come up with a way to protect that we think is also applicable to such items as baby formula, which is another very high theft item that people are trying to get a handle around.
That's not drug related though. That's just simply people wanting it for their children.
Exactly. Yeah, right. That's completely different. That's for their own use.
Right. Okay. Now, how does it work working with Walmart and starting these stores now? And Walmart's all over the world, right? Literally. So, how does it typically work when you engage Walmart? And Walmart is, I suppose, early stages. They're testing it out to begin with. But at what point do they go, yeah, I want this in all of our stores? How does that work?
I think they're working through that right now. We were able to effectively go in with the asset protection group and provide a solution to a very big problem that many at very high levels in the company were being held responsible for. So, the way I would probably describe it now is that Walmart is looking at the issue as a whole and trying to determine, okay, what is a common solution for all the different Walmarts. So, hopefully, as they continue down that path, we're going to be able to play a part. Yeah. It's kind of neat. This isn't the larger cases, but we're working with Walmart right now on being able to come up with a very customer-friendly case to protect your iPhones, the cell phones that are out there. They can't keep them. The demo models, they can't keep them on the shelf for people to use because the theft is so great. So we've come up with a very interesting polycarbonate protective case that allows a user to actually stick their hand in. You can play with the phone, you can sit, you can touch it, you can get a good sense of what it looks like, but you can't pull it out.
Right.
So, and that one was we had a little fun. We challenged our guys in our manufacturing group. We sat there and we said, all right, before we go out to Walmart with this item, we want you guys to just absolutely try to destroy it. And the team had a lot of fun trying to do that. I will tell you that someone might be able to penetrate it, but if they do, it's going to create such a ruckus that people inside Walmart shopping are going to think they're right in the middle of a battle zone or something.
So for do business with the likes of Walmart, are like the individual stores able to initially do business with you, or it has to kind of go up the up the org chart first to corporate?
No, you've got to be a registered vendor with them.
Okay.
So, and it's, Walmart, obviously the leading retailer in the world.
Yeah.
So they've got standards that you actually have to apply for. They've got to do their due diligence on you. And I mean, there's a couple of things. One, they, as their mantra says, they want to make sure that for what they're paying, they're getting value for it. So they want it to be economical. They want to make sure you can do it.
Yeah.
Just in Texas alone, the number of stores can be pretty compelling for a smaller business like us.
How many do they have in Texas?
Off the top of my head,
Hundreds, I would imagine.
It's closer to 1,000.
1,000?
Yeah,
Wow.
I may be off on that, but
Yeah.
it is several hundred.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, it just seems like 1,000 when you're trying to fulfill all the orders.
Yeah, could be. Was it a quick process to work for such a large company in terms of getting it their first model, first cabinet in the store?
It was quick from the perspective that there was a significant need, and one thing that was real good during that 12-month learning curve between going from generation 1 in our cabinets to generation 6, we spent a lot of time becoming an expert. And what was beautiful is we got the input from the people that were, with the responsibility of having to protect that product. And so if you can imagine, it was almost like a learning lesson of just being in class, listening, here's a problem, this is what we have to deal with, this is what we're up against. You absorb all that, you take it back into your manufacturing center, and you sit there and literally you bring the brain trust together and you try to solve it. And the more we got and the more information we got and the more we learned about their business, we truly became experts. And, you always want to believe this, but I really do think that our people are some of the foremost experts on that element of theft inside of retail stores. So, that's really helped us, and that ultimately, I think, triggered our whole idea. We listened enough to sit there and listen to a asset protection manager lament that, oh, great, I'm doing this, but my market manager is going to be upset at me because I'm locking everything up. I wish I could do this. And we heard enough of those I wish I coulds to incubate a completely new idea, ergo SmartTrack.
Right. Now, your company grew really rapidly over the past few years. $1 million in 2014, and you almost 4x'd it. In 2018, you're $3.7 million. What would you say were the three biggest drivers of that growth?
So I think that there was, I want to preface the numbers that you threw out, because the very first 2 years when we had bought the company, and that in and of itself is kind of an interesting story, but when we bought the company, the reason I was so intrigued was there was this husband and wife that had been doing this for 30 years, but the revenues were pretty much year in and year out, kind of capped around $1 million, $1.2 million. The more I looked at it, I understood why. Their, the complex business acumen really wasn't there to have the mindset to grow. If you come with me, for me, with a business background in, either international or domestic, publicly traded, the whole idea is constant growth. You got to figure to grow, you got to grow. So within the realm of what they did, they were very happy. They also did it as economical as possible. They'd been in their facility for about 25 years. There wasn't a lot of advancement. And I probably wouldn't have bought this business if it wasn't for the fact that I sat there and I looked at their customer list. I'm sitting there going, my gosh, here's this husband and wife. They do a very good job. They're well respected. But they got a customer's list that's a who's who. They're sitting there doing business with H-E-B, our largest grower in the Southwest of New Mexico. You've got Whole Foods, which obviously we know their growth. Valero, the gas station, and more of the C-store side of it. And they'd flirted around with other big, they'd been doing business, some with Walmart, Sam's Club. And so when I looked at that, I go, gosh, even though their quality's okay, they're doing something right to have this large cadre of customers keep coming back. So I figure with my background in manufacturing and industrial, I was in the ready-mix concrete, sand and gravel, coring, construction, building material side, I knew processes. And so I felt like I could bring the process to the table in developing this company and growing it. And if I could, have a much better growth vision. Well, the reason I bring this up was because, Malcolm, the first 2 years, it was pulling teeth. I mean, I can sit there and say that we had a lot of foundational work before we could even start attacking, going out and building to the levels. My vision is to take this company in a very short period of time, in the next 5 years, to 50 million or greater. Well, there was no way that it could have stood on the infrastructure that we bought. So, give you an idea, this will probably make you laugh for some of the other clients you've dealt with and who've been privileged to be part of your podcast, but they had 7 PCs that they were effectively using in the company. 5 of those 7 had different operating systems. So when you have to sit there and say, oh my gosh, we got to go from square one, just networking all our PCs, coming up with a home base for our, all of our technologies, being able to have competent hard drive backup, all of that, networking our CNC machines to, getting a higher competent draftsman to do our CAD designing, all that took literally 18 months. And even though we tried to push sales and we got some moderate incremental improvement, I wouldn't say that those were anywhere near the revenue numbers we got. Once we honed in on that, then I said, okay, foundation's good. What do we do really well? Some of your other people that you've interviewed may talk about it. I still am a huge believer in the book Good to Great. Jim Collins, that book, I will tell you, is an absolute roadmap of how you should do business. And his whole concept of what is your hedgehog principle? What do you do well? What do you do better than anyone else? And what are you totally committed to? And that is really what we focused heavily on. And we decided that really I'm going to pull this term from the old Disney group, but our whole idea of Imagineering value for customers is what we do really, really well. And so now how can we go out and sell that? And we've been very fortunate. We've been able to grow the grocery retail merchandising role, but then we've been able to substantially grow the same concept in asset protection. So our real growth took place from around late 2015, early 2016 through last year, 2018. That's where we substantially grew.
Okay. So, but when you acquired the company, that's in 2014, is that when you bought it? Okay. So first thing you did is that you had to lay a foundation. By foundation, it's basic stuff, right? Infrastructure, computers working, equipment being up to date, integrated, having the right people to do what you need
people
to get done.
Was big. 50% of our people, we parted ways with just because they didn't have the competency to get us where we needed to be.
Mm-hmm. And then once you laid down the foundation, then you started focusing on what you do well, which was imagining value for customers. So is there a third driver in there that accelerated your growth?
Well, then the third element is actually creating a roadmap to sit there and identify, okay, if our revenue goals are X, what do we need to do? What is the plan to actually get there? And so that was expanding. It's very easy when you deal with the level of customers we have because they can totally consume you, which gives you no time to sit there and think about, yes, I'm doing this, but I got to grow. So we actually, we added a sales representative. We ended up creating an actual a pipeline template where we actually have targets. We have regular meetings around those targets so that, if you say that maybe 35 to 40% of your targets come to fruition, that means you got to have a lot of targets out there to make sure you're hitting enough to sustain the growth level.
Yep.
So it was really that whole set of planning. And I kind of like to use this analogy with my team. I just used it last week in a conversation we were having about growth, that if you never go out and you play golf, to sit there where you walk up to the tee box, you sit there, you tee off, and you hit this great drive, followed by a great approach shot. You walk up to the green and there's no hole. Right. There is an end result. There is an objective, a goal that you're shooting for. And so you need to understand what that goal is, and then you lay up each one of your shots relative to your goal.
Yep.
And that's probably the third leg of the stool that we really, put forth. And I think it's served us well. I mean, it's certainly, it's been a challenge. I always sit there and describe, I did an interview similar to this, and the individual was asking me, how was the first couple of years? And it reminded me of, must have been like what Charles Lindbergh was like when he was flying the Spirit of St. Louis across the Atlantic. Here he is loaded down, ready to take off. He goes down the runway. He probably bounced about 3 or 4 times before he got airborne.
Yeah.
That's how we were for the first 2 years. Every time you thought you were confident, ready to run, you bounced. But once we've got up in the air, our trajectory has been upward.
Yep. I take it once you had the roadmap to get from X to Y, probably quite a bit of pivoting among that roadmap, right? You weren't stubborn and obstinate and saying, we're getting here no matter what, right? You made adjustments along the way.
You have to. And I can't remember who used this adage one time. I heard that, and I finished off my interview, that one, with, what can you recommend for other entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs? Yeah. I think it's real important that your target's big, but your shots are small. If you're going to have a large target and you're constantly just laying in everything you got in your shot, I'm not sure that you're best served. But if you can break down your large target into incremental components, you'll make headway.
Yep.
And each one of those, you may have to modify what that shot may be, but it's very important that you do that. And I think that we've taken that approach. Fortunately, both myself and my partner in the business, a gentleman named Doug Danhart, we have enough business acumen to recognize it's never all going to go like you think it will.
Yeah.
And so what you let is the forward objective. That's what drives you. You don't let that all of a sudden you had a disappointment take away that you're not still targeting where you're going.
Yep, got it. So you talked about your vision, getting to, how much was it? Was it 50 million or 100 million? 50 million in 5 years?
Plus 50.
Is that 5 years from today or 5 years from 2014? Well, I guess that's far of a stretch. It's already 2019.
It's 5 years from 2018.
Okay, 5 years from 2018.
Is what I felt like that we've got the product offering and the ideas that I think that we could tangibly hit that number. Now, I will tell you this. When you take a group of employees that just shy of $4 million, and you start having conversations with them that we're going to do 50 million in 5 years,
yeah,
I will tell you their eyes gloss over and you lose them. So I've laid that out. It's a big enough number to capture their attention. They know 50's big, but I stopped there because they've never experienced that. I was fortunate enough in my prior role with Martin Marietta, my responsibility was about 1.2 billion, over 17 states, multiple operations, about 1,200 employees. I know what that feels like. So getting them to feel and experience and seeing that this can become a reality, that's going to be a challenge.
A lot of it is that they don't know it's doable until it's done.
Very true.
It's like when people were telling me, oh yeah, I can't imagine anyone ever spending $1 million on anything, on a single decision. I'm going, well, heck, man, I worked as a investment banker doing stockbroker for institutions. They'd send me orders of tens of millions. Just like that, right?
Exactly.
It's just a matter of context. It does happen.
It's funny you should bring that up because the feel of the decision, especially as it relates to yourself, if you're on the hook for it, I can tell you that decision gives you the same sort of gut shot as if you're sitting there working for a publicly traded, having to make a decision on a $250 million deal. And it's kind of all relative. I'm very fortunate to have had those experiences so I could put it into context.
Yeah.
Because if it's a first time, I can understand where it's a tough go for people.
Yeah. Just can't imagine how it can happen, how it can be done, but it does happen, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So between now and 2023, what do you see as the biggest challenges that you and your team need to overcome, besides accepting that it's doable?
The biggest challenge is going to be, I think our ideas are solid enough that they're going to pick up traction real quickly. And so being able to manage that growth and to effectively tie in with the right partners to be able to sustain that growth trajectory is going to be very critical. In this labor market, going out and competing with top-notch talent, that's another thing. If you go back to good to great, you can't have an expectation to perform at a high level if you're going to have average people. So we're going to have to find quality, diversified individuals that want to be part of something special, that are in the game. And that's not going to be that easy to do, because you're now taking us with SmartTrack, you're taking us out of the realm of being a pure manufacturing firm, and you're interspersing high tech and the elements that come along with that with data software, how you package that, that's so far removed from what we do now. So that's going to be a challenge.
Plus, the people in those different categories think differently.
Oh, very much so. Very much. But you take manufacturing individuals, they're very linear. And you want them to be linear. You don't want a freewheeler that may be highly sought after in the tech industry to be sitting there driving your assembly line.
Yep.
So you are correct. That's going to be a real challenge.
Yeah. I mean, back in my investment banking days, right, there are the salespeople who think they just want orders, they want business, right? You have compliance people. Their mindset is let's make sure that we don't violate any policies whatsoever, right?
Right.
Totally different. You have the shared services folks. Those guys have the hardest job because they're doing their job perfectly means nothing goes wrong, right? So they get no one pats them on the back.
Right.
Or great that the computer systems are working, but then when things go wrong, they hear it comes
Sure.
rains down on their end. Imagine for your teams as well, right? You have asset protection, manufacturing, high tech side, and then you have the marketing side as well.
So, it's kind of interesting. We talked long and hard about this. The element on kind of that whole packaging where we shift and combine the elements of manufacturing to actually going in and selling, more of the creative ideas, the technology base. We're actually, right now, we call it our OPX Division, and it's a complete different mentality. It's a complete different look. And that's what we're trying to do, is to kind of create that idea generating incubator or pod inside our organization, that if you work in the OPEX side, you're clearly different. You're identified as being different. And that's the think tank. So that's one of the ways we're trying to bridge that. And as we sell our ideas, especially on a lot of the merchandise, the big merchandisers, the end caps, those things, we sell it as OPEX.
Right. So how about in terms of finding new customers? What are the challenges on that front?
It's real challenge, because what we want to do, remember, for us to work, we've got to find someone that's got some depth and scope to them. They've got to buy in multiples. Those kind of businesses, they're big, and it's not easy to penetrate those groups. You can't just all of a sudden walk up to the headquarters of Macy's and say, "Hi, I'm Bruce. This is what I've got to offer." Trying to penetrate that, it can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And, aligning yourself with partners that can get you in the door to just even give you an opportunity is a real challenge. But that's what we've done. When I told you that we've got this pipeline funnel that we've ended up doing, that's exactly how we structured it.
So you found partners to help you make introductions to these large national brands, global brands in many cases. So how does that work in terms of starting a relationship and seeing if you can help them?
Well, the first thing, if you're looking for a partner, we've tried to avoid the consultant, the pure flat paid consultant. What we've tried to do is identify people that we can put in line with the process, where if we can have, let's say for SmartTrack, and we've got an individual, I really don't want to use their name at this point, but let's say on SmartTrack, if they are someone that's got a national presence, that once we manufacture and we sell, they could actually go in and do the installation, maintenance, and all the warranty work. And it just so happens that they've got a component that they manufacture we can utilize inside SmartTrack. But inside their customer portfolio, they've got, let's say, 20 of the top 50 retailers. So we tried to align ourselves with partners along those lines so that when we go to market, they're a participant in it, but ultimately they were the ones that opened the door for us, and they brought us to the table. And that's been pretty effective. Actually, that's been the quickest way we've been able to have some success. And in fact, right now we're in discussion with 2 very large groups to further our SmartTrack potential.
Now, I would have thought because you were doing business with the HEB and Walmarts of the world, that alone you should be able to get someone's attention for a brief moment to share what you do.
But I will tell you, if you really look at a lot of our products, relative to what some of these larger groups do, we're on the bottom rung. They don't focus a lot on asset protection or cabinetry or merchandising displays and that. So they're busy. They've got kind of their whole chain of events. You know, if you look at retail, the retail side is all based on, you know, you've got your holiday sales, you got your Labor Day sale, Memorial Day. They're very focused on those areas. So now you've got to just find time or to break in just to have the conversation and show that what you're bringing to the table is valuable. It's not easy. Those are mega corporations. Trying to get a meeting with the head of marketing or merchandising for, let's say, Circle K, that could be months worth to just break in there. And yes, once we get there and they see that we do business with H-E-B and Walmart and that, it adds to our credibility. But just getting in the door to talk to that person is very difficult.
Mm. Have you tried your own outreach?
We have.
And
we still do. It's very, very time consuming. If you want to kind of circumvent that, find yourself the partners. And they're partners we need. It's not like we're trying to go out and find an awkward way to make them fit.
Yeah, the thing about partners, though, is that you're kind of dependent on them to think of you as part of the solution for whatever they're doing with their existing customer relationships, right?
So the way we've done that, and it's a pretty easy interview with them. We sit down, we get to know the various partners, and we lay out what we do and where we're going with the company. And it's amazing because the ones we've done this with, right away they start in with, wow, that could do this for our customer, that could do this for our customer. Then now we've got a common objective. You know, they see a value that this could bring to their customer, which only enhances what they do for their customer. So now is there that match where they can be an integral part of the team. So for instance, in SmartTrack, we needed a specific mechanism inside of SmartTrack that happens to be integral in security. This company, it was actually they were a consultant in that realm with a wide array of customers, and they were able, not only they consultant, but then they also will broker various products. And they were able to sit there and say, yeah, we could provide this for you, but we're also interested in growing, and we have service teams that are all around. This just naturally fits. I don't want to do service. You know, I don't want to have a team that's available in every single region that on a minute's notice can get out and do the repairs. These guys already have it.
Right.
So those are the kind of partners I'm talking about, where there's a synergistic relationship between us and them, and it's just a natural fit.
Yeah. So do you find that there are a lot of these partners out there?
There's enough for the areas we've needed to open up enough doors. And, you know, again, we're a slightly under $4 million company with, yes, big goals, but we can't go out. It would be a nightmare if we went out to 20 customers, big customers, and all of a sudden they said, yes, we love you, let's go. We couldn't do it. And we have intentionally tried to avoid putting ourselves in that position. So we've been very selective on targeting, you know, and only taking so much that we can progress. I fully anticipate, you know, you were in investment banking prior?
I was for a while, yeah.
Okay, so, you know, I'm sitting there thinking that if things get rolling, we're going to have to look at how do we capitalize the company? You know, do we go the private equity route, or what are we going to do? Because I think even despite our attempts to kind of grow it organically, we can't do it.
Yeah. Definitely don't go to the Shark Tank. I watched that show and it really bothers me because these guys are getting ripped off.
Oh, in a big way.
Yeah.
But it shows you kind of in the realm of, you know, entrepreneurship. I was very fortunate, you know, done probably more than 20 deals, you know, ranging from $4 million to $280 million in scope. And when you really understand the nuances of value and how you value a business and that, most of the guys that are going, they're desperate. They got a great idea, but they don't understand value. They don't understand, you know, they don't have access to cash. And then what does that create? Desperation. And you got a great idea and you're willing to kick out 50, 60% of your business for $100,000.
Yeah. And
so in your world, you're sitting there going, are you crazy?
You nuts? Borrow it from your cousin or something, you know?
Absolutely. And, I've tried to put it in perspective to, again, retain control and to organically grow. But there is going to be a point where, you know, I'll add it this way. I was doing a deal one time and this was with Redland PLC out of Reigate, England. They were the parent company. They were a FTSE 100 company at the time. They ultimately got taken over in a hostile. But at the time, they were looking at having to liquidate some of the U.S. assets. And Coke, the Koch brothers, they took a very hard look at us. And what we tried to pitch was, we got this great management team. You guys come in, you go ahead and back us, and you have a stake. We'll have a stake as a sweat equity partners. And they worked for about 30 days on the due diligence. They loved it. We were so excited. And then they sat us down and they said, you know what? We think you guys got this great idea, but quite frankly, we don't think we need you. And, we were kind of all stunned, but it was a heck of a learning lesson outside of, we're construction material producers. And what they sat and told us, they said, the one thing you'll learn at Coke, don't ever get too attached with what you do, because if something's worth more to someone else than it is to you, that future value of that discounted cash flow stream, we're going to sell it. And I've always kept that kind of in the back of my mind. And if there is something that says, that it's worth more to someone else and it's a lot more than I can see to get it, then that's the time where we would make the move.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. Especially if the other company has the benefits of acquiring you that no one else would get, right? Because it somehow fits into their platform, closes a gap, lets them win 10x more orders, simply because that part of the puzzle is missing, which you can never replicate on your own.
No, and I'm kind of, Malcolm, I'm fortunate enough at this point in my career, I was able to early retire and really pursue my passion, which was I started from an entrepreneurial base, and I always wanted, I threw a circuitous route, I was on a steadfast path to stay on the publicly traded side, but ultimately I wanted to come back. And my passion was always to be, could I try to take a startup and really grow it, or something that was the equivalent of a startup and really try to grow it? It's hard work, but I'm fortunate that I'm not that guy that doesn't know where my next 100,000 is going to come from to be able to finance the business. I will tell you though that if one of those 20 big companies come and say, here we go, that 100,000 that I'm real confident right now, maybe several million, and I'm going to be looking for the money.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
3 last questions for you, Bruce.
Sure.
If you had a billboard talking about SaniSafe, what would that billboard message be?
That's a great question.
Keep in mind that most people drive by a billboard in 6 seconds, so you don't have a lot of time, not a lot of room nor time to have a long message come across.
Here's, in truest fashion, the first way I'm going to dodge your question is I'm going to say, not a lot of our business is going to be driven by billboards, but if I was out there to show a moniker for what our business is SaniSafe achieving heights never thought possible. And that really epitomizes what I'm trying to build. What I take great satisfaction in at this point in my career is getting people to think at a different level than what they've ever done before, and actually realizing how much more they can get out of what their potential is. And that's what I've tried to build this company around. So again, am I going to sell anything from that? No, but I think it epitomizes what SaniSafe is all about.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, it can help you with hiring.
Yeah.
Right? Put that up in San Antonio.
We've learned in a way about social media and how important a role that plays with, we do 3 posts a week on all the social media networks, and we intentionally show culture just to show what it looks like to work for us. And, look, work isn't always fun, but you spend so much time at work versus what you do at home. It should be a pleasurable experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we've tried to portray that. And I'll tell you what, for someone that's, I'm 58 years old, and I didn't grow up in that. It wasn't hard for me to understand the concept, but sometimes it's hard if I didn't have kids that I visibly see how much they use that. I wouldn't truly understand how important that really is at driving what your company is all about.
I wouldn't have guessed that you were 58 if I
appreciate that.
Yeah. So what is it? Are you like a decathlete and watch what you eat? And
oh, this is good. I appreciate
this would be totally another interview, but in a nutshell, are you like careful about what you eat and you're up by 5 and you're running 10 miles a day?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I would say that both my wife and I have, we understand the value of health, and we're health conscious. We've intentionally, really over the last 5 to 7 years, have really focused on that part. The balance is really important. I've always believed that the investment that you have in kind of this age bracket right now is going to dictate your quality of life when you get in your 70s and 80s. And so we're focused, and I'm telling you, I'm very fortunate because all my kids are very focused on that. They're all ex-athletes. My wife and I were ex-athletes, and so we tried to keep that regimen. So thank you.
So you had a large base built up in your youth.
We did.
Which is really key, because your body, at one point, your body slowly deteriorates, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's just age.
Yeah, and that's the whole, coming to grips with what you truly are and what your capabilities are. I mean, I know what I can and can't do, so what I try to do is maximize what I can.
Yeah, that's, my boy's been really proud about how he ran like a 8-minute mile. I'm going, yeah, right, come on, give me a break. This school's measurement's probably all wrong. So look, I said, okay, let's go jogging yesterday. Let's go jogging. Let's go see what your numbers are like. I really think he can do it. He can run faster and longer than I am before I tire out. He's a quick little guy.
So you know what, my wife Cindy and I, what we find totally fascinating is your generation, and those below we've got kids. Our youngest daughter is 25. My oldest is 33, and their knowledge about food and the importance of training and that is so much greater than where we were, in the early 80s and that. And
I look at what I ate: Pop-Tarts, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Horrible.
I thought quiche was healthy, a full quiche. I learned that that's not good for you. And so that's been significantly modified, and hopefully we caught it in time.
Yeah. I just hope I haven't brainwashed my kids too much about the evilness of sugar,
Yeah, exactly. No, I know that.
So the last question, who are your ideal partners, and what's the best way for them to reach out to you and your team?
So really the ideal partners are people that understand and value creativity and actually working in a team environment to try to make whatever concept they have a reality. That's what we're really, really good at. If you've got an idea of what the end game is, and I'm talking specifically, it can be outside of grocery or retail, but if you've got an idea that is either to market or to merchandise or display anything that you want to utilize plastic, acrylic, and we can do other mediums too, we're the team you want to talk to. And, sometimes it's tough to go cradle to grave with an idea when you're a larger corporation. But if you know the end result, you've got an idea, we can be a very effective partner. Even how we display it. We've got, this is kind of neat, and we didn't talk about it, but we've got a resource that we use that when someone comes up and says, hey, can you come up with an idea to help do X, whatever it is? We're able to go, and we've got a very unique designer who also happens to be a graphic artist, a cartoonist. And so what we're able to do is develop the ideas in kind of a table layout, like a cartoon, of how the concept works. And you wouldn't believe how effective that is in selling product. Invariably, every time we go and bring that to the table, there's wow, we love this. We love it. You picked up on my concept, because in their world, they can see it. They can see it evolve over the picture board.
It's a story, right? They can see the story.
Exactly. And that's kind of a unique thing. You're not going to see that. If you go to some other group, what they're going to do, you're going to get a bunch of CAD drawings. They're going to be very detailed. Do we do that? Obviously, we have to do that, because that's how you do your cut files and you build the product. But to transfer the idea, to sit there and say, I like the concept, now build me that CAD design, you've got to get over that. And that's where I think we have an edge. So I think those are the kind of partners that we're looking for. The other thing I would say, and it may sound a little bit cliche, but we want to do business with people that care about us. They value the relationship. Every one of our suppliers or customers that we do business with, we believe that there is a forward and backward relationship where we truly do care about their success and they care about ours. They understand what value we bring. I always tell my team, that if you can't go out and sell tangibly what our value is, you're probably not going to make a sale. And if you look at business as a whole, how many people really go out and sell a product and can't do that? You know, why is that? Whatever you're selling me, why is it worth the price you're selling it to me? And if you can't have that conversation, you're probably not at the top of your game, and that's what we're striving to do.
Yeah, that's kind of in my opinion, for that question, that hypothetical question, that should be easy to answer if it's not the first question that's in the beginning of your relationship, right? Because then you have no value. You have no idea what value you're providing.
Absolutely.
Right. But once you can figure out how you can help, but then, now you can justify. Yeah, you talked about this problem you have of losing $1 million a year of product, and we have a solution here. If we rolled it out throughout your store, it's going to cost $50,000. Plucking a number out of the air. That's the value, right? It's pretty clear.
Absolutely. And like I said before, there's some people that are very, very good at sales that get that, or they get how to market their corporation or their company. There's a lot of people that don't. And if you don't, you really shouldn't be in there trying to sell.
Yeah, well, it's also challenging as well, right? Because people have choices.
Mm-hmm.
People are overwhelmed with information, right? It comes at you from all directions, wanted and unwanted. And people, as you mentioned, are busy, right? You talked about the people at Macy's, for example. They're worried about the next seasonal campaigns and promotions, right? Yes, they have a problem with shrinkage, but it's not as big as this other problem where if they mess it up and don't get things lined up for Labor Day, it's a huge issue, right? So, a lot of challenges there to break through. So, Bruce, it's been great having you on my show and talking about how you grew your business, and as well as talking about product development and business development. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I appreciate it, Malcolm. Thank you for having me.
We've been speaking with Bruce Vaio, the owner and managing partner of SaniSafe, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.